Welcome back to Diaspora Glitch Podcast, where home is a patchwork of places. On this podcast, we explore what happens when people build lives across borders, how migration reshapes our ideas of home, identity, work, belonging, family, and even our relationship with the environment around us. Today, we are looking at that experience through the world of engineering. So we are going to ask questions like, what does it take to build a life, career, and a sense of home in UK when you arriving carrying ambitions, qualifications, culture, and expectations shaped somewhere else? My guest today is Engineer Onyekachi. He's a Nigerian researcher and who has been working on engineering projects across different fields: manufacturing, industrial maintenance, energy, food, manufacturing, construction, and engineering design. He holds bachelor's and master's degree in mechanical engineering, including an MSc from the University of Chester, and he is a member of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. Engineer Monday has research interests that include sustainable materials, advanced manufacturing, and circular economy technologies. I want to talk about the human being behind the engineer. What does it actually mean to arrive in the UK as a first-generation African immigrant, study here, work here, build professional credibility here, and gradually turn somewhere foreign into somewhere you can call home? Engineer Onyekachi, welcome to Diaspora Glitch.
Thank you very much, my distinguished friend and brother Joseph, also known as Esther Town. This concept is a very wonderful one, and believe me, it's going to go a very long way to make people understand what we are doing and what you're doing. So, thank you very much for establishing Diaspora Glitch.
Thank you very much, Engineer. So, right now, we're going to move into what Nigeria was like, the ambitions and the decision to move. Before we delve into the engineer, let's try to understand the person behind the profession. Before you get to UK, I want to go backwards because nobody arrives at an airport as a blank page. We arrive carrying a whole world with us. So, Engineer Onyekachi, take me back to Nigeria. Who were you before engineering degrees and professional titles entered the picture? I mean, what kind of community and family environment shaped your upbringing?
Yeah, thank you very much for that beautiful questions. To be honest with you, I'm somebody that has been positive all my lifetime. I was born in a family of four, and for the fact that my mom wasn't able to go to higher institutions, she deemed it necessary that every of her children must go to the university. It doesn't just come very easy, like I said. So I made sure I tried to put my best in every little opportunity. During those days, we have a very good secondary school. So I was opportune to be sent to a very good school because I'm a very bright student and I didn't disappoint my mom. So I went to one of the best secondary schools. Despite the family I was coming from then, I went to International Secondary School, Abia State University. It was actually a boarding school. So considering the cost of the school, my mom said she's gonna make sure all her children goes to school. She teamed up with my dad and they made sure they support me. They made sure I went through that school. So that was where the foundation of my career, my life started. So I continued with that knowledge, with that strength, up to my secondary school. And from there, I started pushing for university. So
Yeah.
I remain with those ideas, and that is what came me through. And from university, every other thing started happening.
Thank you very much for this succinct introduction into this conversation. Um, I can very much relate to these experiences, also growing up in Nigeria myself. I like to ask, was engineering always the plan from childhood, or did life gradually push you in that direction?
Wow. Yeah, to be honest with you, when I was very young, I find myself doing a whole lot of mechanical engineering things. I sometimes come up with concepts, ideas, we build cars, equipment, we build mechanical things that functions, just childhood plays. So we try to build cars, trailers, bicycle. So I started discovering that I enjoy so much a lot about things that are related to mechanical engineering. So that is
Thank you.
where I started developing myself.
This is really nice to understand. When you look at environment across Europe, you see that children are often exposed to this kind of environment, where they play with tools and equipment. And
Yeah.
in some ways, it goes on to shape who the child later becomes as an adult. I'd like to quickly, move into the UK environment. When you eventually decided to pursue further education in the UK, what did the UK represent to you at that point? Why the UK? What was the motivation? Why not maybe the US, Canada, perhaps Germany?
I love the question you've just asked. To be honest with you, I am somebody that I believe that there's a part in the Bible. I'm not trying to digress, but I so much believe
No, it's,
in the
it's fine.
Bible.
It's always good. I mean, if you're a Christian, that's good.
There's a part in the Bible that said, I think it's in Ecclesiastes 11 verse 1 or something like that. It says, cast the bread upon the water. So I'm somebody that I don't put my eggs in one basket. I believe that in life, opportunity will always come, but are you prepared? So I keep myself prepared for every opportunity that comes my way. And sometimes when I'm chasing things, I don't chase them from one aspect. So during the time of my traveling, I was open-minded to the A-list countries. I was chasing the US, I was chasing Canada, I was chasing the UK, the three at the same time. And the UK came out smooth, and these other ones were having some delays, some setbacks, and other things. I said to myself, okay, you know what? Let me start from the UK. And that is how I was able to come to the UK. And since then, this has been going smoothly.
Thank you very much for this reflection. And you captured it nicely. It's good for one to be prepared for opportunity. And in your own case, you are quite ready and it worked out. Takes a
Yeah,
lot of prepared mind to reach this height. I think migration starts twice.
hmm
First in your imagination and then in
exactly.
reality.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
different was the UK you imagined from a distance compared to the UK you actually encountered?
There is no aspect of traveling that is easy, no matter how we paint it, because what you see on the television screen is different from what you see when you're on ground. So what I
Yeah,
mean, in as much as we watch movies, I will say,
yeah.
wow, I want to be here, I love here, I want to go there. But when you come, you understand that some people that are there are not even happy, they want to live there.
So that was a reality check for you. This is interesting to know. Do you remember the first few days or weeks in the UK? Was there a
If
moment when you thought, oh, I'm definitely not in Nigeria anymore, or I'm somewhere in advanced Nigeria? Or I mean, were there
uh,
times you question your move?
The fact is that, when you're moving to a place that you don't have anybody, some people are privileged to have people when they travel to any country or maybe abroad, they have people that receive them, they give them that kind of relaxed moment, they feel at
Yeah,
home, they easily integrate and stuff like that. But I just came on my own. I have to dig out things by myself, sort out things, you know how it is luggage, sorting out accommodation because I have to book temporary place to stay, which will expire. And you know how much it costs, trying to convert currency when you don't have permanent places and the rest. So it wasn't easy. But the fact is that the things I was actually looking forward to those initial time
yes,
wearing really what it is. For instance, we used to be in a country where we believe everywhere is very lively. You come out, you see people, it's great, you talk to people. In abroad, it's not something of that nature, especially those few times that you just come, you don't have anybody. That's what I mean. It's a little bit boring, and that's the first time you've not gotten your documents, not been able to set things working and see how
yeah.
to start getting your first interviews and first jobs. Those few moments weren't really, really easy. The biggest shock, of course, I got was in the times I just came in new, you have to visit your school to start up your enrollment. Or I don't joke with my stomach. I went to the restaurant and I look at I just asked what you guys have. They say, oh, we have this, we have soup, we have that. I was rejoicing, thinking that the soup they meant was a goosey soup or kasi soup. I have to say, give me soup. Man, they brought water and onion or some other thing like that. Say, is this soup? He say yes. I was expecting fufu or gari, but
Yes,
I didn't know that soup is, entirely different from what we call soup. I was thinking
soup.
soup is soup everywhere in the world, something like that. So
Yeah,
these are the challenges I had those initial times. So and that just
yeah. It's nice the way you reflected, your experiences of soup. Let us delve a bit into some of this culture shock. Let's talk about the way you leave Nigeria and suddenly you are negotiating British winter, short daylight hours and rain that seems to have its own timetable. How did your body and your wardrobe react to the first winter?
yeah. Well, when I was coming, people were telling me, "Oh, come on, guy, you need to get winter jacket." I was thinking it's a joke. In my own sense, I would be like, "What the hell I did say?" If in a worst case scenario, I would look like five clothes and double and wear inside. I'll get warm.
Okay, tell me, how did that work out for you? Did you double up clothes and did it work?
Well, it appears I came towards the winter period. That was around October. It has not really been actual winter, but at least it's getting a little bit chill. Say
Cold.
maybe, yeah. That period should be maybe towards fall, isn't it? Yeah, around October. That was when I came in. So by the time I landed in Manchester Airport, inside the airport everywhere is always warm, isn't it? So when I just came outside, I started feeling very chilling things on my body. I was like, what's going on? Because I couldn't. I said, is there any fridge around there or what? What's going on? Before you know it, too, my hand have started, you know, going very
Drying up.
chilly, very cold. Yeah. So that was when the reality started setting in. I now have to bring out the Bako jacket I bought from Lagos, but I
Wow.
couldn't do
This is a,
anything.
this is a very interesting, adjustment. But beyond this moment, what was the hardest thing emotionally about leaving the familiarity of home? How did you cope understanding that you're going to be here for a while without those social connections and emotional bond that you left back home?
Yeah. One thing about when you're traveling, you should have one thing in mind. You understand? For me, I have one thing in mind. That thing I have in mind is one, there is a process, there is no place in life that is gonna be easy. So I was like, for me to scale through, for me to get whatever I want, I really have to pass through these challenges. It was difficult. Sometimes I travel very far, almost 2, 3 hours, because those initial times for you to get some jobs, you need to travel 3 hours and work under intense weather condition outside. Sometimes we do some jobs like maybe all these replenishment stores, and these things are jobs we do in very cold, intense weather. So I saw those things as part of the struggle, part of the process to get to the destination. So, in as much as they were not easy, but I just have to absorb them and keep going.
Yeah. I like the way you reflect, these experiences. And that is why a diaspora glitch is a very good space to share this thought. That is why we're here to hear these stories and also share the from it. And then you have
Mhm.
to do something quite difficult. While you are still figuring out a new country, you are expected to perform academically, which brings me to university life. So, Engineer Onyekachi, I'd like to ask, what was it like, university, culture shock, finding your footing, particularly in this sense? You studied mechanical engineering at master's level at the University of Chester. People often talk about international education as though it's simply get admission, fly to the UK, study, graduate. But there is an entire life happening around that degree. Help us understand, help us unpack what was the transition into the British university system actually like for you?
Yeah, it wasn't an easy one. Believe me, engineering in the UK is very, very difficult. Yeah, you have to prove yourself, to be honest. I'm not gonna say every other courses in the UK are not difficult, but I'm saying about the one I know truly and I know very well. If you're doing 6 courses, for instance, those 6 courses end up becoming almost 18 courses because one course can have 3 different part of assessment inside it, and those 3 different assessment are rated as one course, and at the end of the day, they are compressed together. You understand? For instance, you're doing mechanical engineering design, for instance, as a course. That course will be splitted into one presentation, two practical or technology work, three theory or exam. You understand? So in that case, those each of them are rated 100. So they are treated as a separate entity inside a course.
And you have to pass all of them.
Yes, you have to pass all of them separately, not together. If you fail any one, it affects you as well. So you might be thinking that I'm going to do 6 courses, but at the end of the day, you might end up to or 12 courses, 18 courses, 10 courses, and the rest.
And that would mean it becomes more intensive than what you had in Nigeria, I suppose.
Exactly. And you have limited time to do some of these things because at the same time, you have your lectures to attend, you have some assessment to work on. I need to visit library to make research, you need to visit the lab, to conduct some experiments or some practicals. At the same time, you need to go to the workshop, I need to travel down home. Of course, from my place of stay to school is almost 1 hour or so. So you need to travel home. Sometimes you get
So
frustrated.
it's, if I understand correctly, it's quite a busy life, What
It's
was it like,
very, very busy.
lecturer? What was it like, relationship with lecturers, classroom culture? Was there a surprise for you? Assuming someone is listening and watching this podcast now and imagining, oh, I want to go study in engineering in the UK. What do you think the person would experience in terms of classroom culture, and relationship
Yeah.
with lecturers compared to where you were coming from?
Yeah. I've got a lot of shocks, in respect to that. I give, for instance, when we watch, while we are Nigeria, when we watch maybe the UK or the US or every other thing, we believe that when these people speak, that what they are speaking is exactly the way it is here. Just what I mean.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that even in the UK, somebody from Manchester, for instance, cannot comprehend what somebody from Ireland is speaking very well. But they're speaking the same English. And so what I mean?
I see.
Somebody from Manchester cannot hear what somebody from Liverpool. Like the Liverpool, their accent is Scouse. No, a lot of people cannot understand Scousers when they speak. I find that
But
very
yet they speak
interesting.
English.
Yes. But you find you might not understand them very easily. You see what I mean? So coming to a classroom where you have your lecturers from some of these places that have different accents. So in the UK, there are a lot of English accents. So if you're unlucky to have a lecturer that speak one of those accents that are very, very fast and very, very, you might not really be
Yeah.
comprehend, but you might struggle a lot. You understand what I mean? Because the lecturers, they are working with time, of course. So they don't have all the whole time in this world to wait for you to explain things over and over for you. So some
Yeah.
of those things are, what you don't get directly from lecturer, you find it also difficult to start going back, getting more class trainings and other things. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So in that
You know,
aspect, it was
I am happy with the way you reflected this accent. You captured that. Outside the UK, you hear English. But
exactly
little do you know that when you move into the UK, there are different versions of English
very,
expression, different
yeah.
humor and how people communicate. I need you to reflect on this. When you're now in the UK, you look at the pressure for people to speak good English in countries such as Nigeria, maybe Ghana. People even try to deny their accents in the bid to tailor their voice and their accent to a particular aspect of English accent, which is not necessarily universal because when you go to the UK, as you said now, there are different accents. How do you
Different.
reflect that, rush and that culture in a place like Nigeria where people are sometimes judged for having, for example, boutique accent, or maybe having two Yoruba accents, or maybe having two Hausa accents when they speak English, and others kind of look at them as they are not good communicators, or they don't communicate properly because of their accents?
Well, If you ask me, I would say some of these things boils down to enlightenment and exposure and travel. You know what I mean? At least I've been exposed, traveled, to a lot of places. I've come to understand that people have accent and they are proud of their accent.
And they're proud of it.
Exactly. So the most important is that are you speaking the right thing? Are you communicating? Okay, there was a time I was jokingly speaking to one of my British friends. I was like, "What do you see about my accent and the rest?" He said, "Monday, believe me, keep this your accent. If there's anything you should live in this life, never leave your accent." These are British people telling me that. I said, "Why?" He said, "Because this your accent is what makes you unique. Changing your accent to speak like us means you're faking it, and that is not you, and that is not English. English is ability to communicate, and people were able to comprehend or hear you and get you. That is just English. Just speak clearly for people to hear you. You understand?
You mean a British person was telling you this?
Not one, not two, so many. A lot of times they just come and repeat what I said. I say, "Oh, Monday, I love the accent so much," because they feel that accent is unique. I'm not saying that because you've got accent that you shouldn't speak properly for people to comprehend or get you very well. Just what I mean.
Yeah.
You just make sure if your accent is the one that is very quick, just speak slowly. People will catch what you're saying. It just it. But you're not gonna change your accent to come and start, hello, oh, no, no, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to highlight this, and that is why we are in a space like this podcast, because I think that many people, especially those in Africa or maybe in other countries, they kind of put a lot of pressure on themselves because they want to build and train their accent to sound British. But then when you come to the UK, you then have diversity of accents. A Scottish man doesn't want to sound like an Englishman. They like to keep their accents. When you go to England, just like you have highlighted, someone in London speaks differently from someone in Liverpool, and
Exactly.
this also differs from someone in Manchester. So you begin to wonder, why do you need to pressure yourself because you want to sound like another person? You take away the originality of the whole essence of your identity. So I am happy to hear this. And do you sometimes find yourself understanding every word someone said, but somehow still wondering what they meant? Were there moments that happened to you?
Yeah, initially when I came new, I was battling a lot to understand the Scousers. Scousers are Liverpool. You know what I mean? But Manchester is very quite easy. You can easily understand them. Their English is very simple. London accent is also very clear. But I was finding it difficult with Scouse. A lot of people battle so much with Scouse accent and Irish accent. Irish accent
Yeah.
is very also difficult, but Scouse was difficult. So those times communicating in place of work is not really very much easy. So I have to try to sometimes ask, "Can you say that again? Can you say that again?" Slowly, gradually, I start
And
to
when you
piece
ask
some.
them, can you say that again? Do they feel bad or do they also willingly
No,
repeat what they
no, no.
said?
They are happy to let you understand very well what they are saying. That's what I mean. Because sometimes as well, because the way you have difficulty in understanding them is the way they also find it difficult in understanding you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So at the same time, but they still try to ask you, "Can you say yours again?" It
yeah.
doesn't mean that your English is not good. Your English there's nothing wrong with your English. It's just that there is a lot of accent that maybe they've not heard before and they are not familiar to it.
So what you're saying now is when someone is speaking and you ask them to repeat what they said, it is not coming from you having problem with understanding English.
No,
Sometimes I ask this question because sometimes you see students, back home when a teacher, for example, a lecturer says something and they say, can you repeat that? Sometimes some tutors or lecturers take it to mean that the student has poor grasping of English language.
no, it's not poor grasping. This is where accent comes in. These are accents you've not heard before. These are people you've never met for once, people you've not spoken with before. So if the accent is very deep or is thick, there's no way you can get them at a go. So you need to ask, "Please, can you repeat that again?" So it's normal thing.
All right. Thank you very much for reflecting this. And outside the university, there are ordinary things immigrants have to learn very quickly: housing, transport, banking, shopping, paperwork, understanding, how the systems work. What everyday part of British life took you the longest to figure out?
There are a whole lot of them, to be honest, because the UK is a place that you work with time. I don't know. I believe everywhere in abroad is time, time, time. So most times the major difficulties we have is transportation systems.
Yeah,
Trying to figure out yourself with Google Maps.
yeah, yeah,
Underground tunnels.
yeah.
There are lots of underground tunnels. Which of the platform are you using to where you're going? Are you able to meet up with that time? And is that train gone? Booking ticket, is it everyday ticket or is it anytime ticket or is it a single ticket? Getting bus ticket and before you come, the bus didn't show up. Or before you come, the bus have updated in Google Map, they've left earlier before. All those things. These are
So,
very,
so, so,
very
so,
difficult.
so, from what you're saying, a first generation immigrant, biggest challenge was figuring out the transportation aspect.
Yeah, transportation and even food as well. Because the time we came, we didn't have enough African shops. So I need to travel far to buy my
Yeah,
usual.
yeah, I get. So this is good, it's good to know. And that is why we're in this space, people understand what
Exactly.
to expect.
Yeah.
Some international students also experience financial pressures that are not very visible. How did you navigate the practical realities of studying while also trying to establish yourself here?
Yeah. By the time I came in here, I was very lucky that I've paid at least up to 70% of my school fees, first installment and second installment. So I was left with
Yeah,
the last installment, which is a huge amount anyway. I was trying to make sure I survive mostly with some local food I came with. I made good use of them while I also add up with the ones I have here. So it made me, I didn't spend so much on luxuries or so much on food. At that period of time, I try to save as much as I can because when you're in school, you're expected to work just 20 hours. Then during holidays, you can work unlimited hours. So I made good use of my holidays, and make sure
interesting.
during my holidays time, I worked a whole lot of time. Although I was also making sure I was eating very well, getting my shifts ahead of time for the holidays period. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So that really helped me to make sure I got enough money to sort myself and keep going.
Yeah, I think this is really, interesting for guests to know. And let's talk about identity as an immigrant. Did you find yourself becoming more conscious of being Nigerian or African after leaving Nigeria? Sometimes you don't really think about identity until you are somewhere where identity becomes noticeable. In this sense, at what point, if there was one, did living in the UK stop feeling completely foreign?
Well, as far as today, when you compare Nigeria to Britain, there's still a huge gap. So Britain will always remain foreign to me. The gap is much. It will always remain foreign
Yeah.
to me.
So
So
you are
I just
saying that despite being away from home, it is still not easy for you to call UK home yet. In terms of friendship, routine, neighborhood, your work, is this something as simple as knowing exactly where to buy the food you wanted? Does any of these everyday realities help you somehow feel like you can call this place home?
yeah, Britain is home for me. If you ask me, it's home for me. But it doesn't mean that in the future I will not relocate to another country. I'm still open.
But this everyday navigation of life realities, do you compare to when you were in Nigeria? So in the kind of neighborhood you find yourself, the kind of work you do, where you go to buy your food, does it help you have the sensibility of calling this place a home?
Yeah,
Or do
it's
you
a
still
home.
feel like a stranger?
I don't feel like a stranger. It's a home. I give you, for instance, someone was trying to make an establishment, and the person reached out to me and said to me, "Oh, please, can you link me up to some of your white friends so that they can grace our event and other things?" So, if people are already see me as somebody that have actually integrated and mixed up with people over here, of course, you can always believe with me that it's a home for me. A few days ago, I was speaking with a friend, and the friend said to me, why is it that most Nigerians here they don't have any white friend here? They find it difficult to mix up with us. But you, Monday, you have numerous white friends. How are you able to do it, but others cannot do it? So I've always taken it as a home for me. So My everyday endeavors or activities have actually mixed up very fine with it, and I can navigate my ways in respect to things I need here, both shoppings or places to get what I need for any purpose. So it's a quite nice thing for me, and I can assure you, of course, I'm mixing up properly here, and it's a hope for me.
From your definition, you think home transcends where you were born and raised. So currently, do you suppose that the diaspora life you're living now have changed the meaning of home for you?
Of course, it has. It has. For me, home is that place you are having that peace of mind, making your progress. It could be career
Yes.
wise, could be any other aspect in skill set,
Yeah.
anything is a home. That is what I believe.
Thank you very much for this reflection. I mean, it's important for us to know how the mobility trajectories into the century is
Yeah.
reshaping the meaning of home. So, the end of a university education comes another reality that many first generation immigrants know very well. How do I turn this qualification into a career? Is always the question many immigrants ask. And for those watching from afar, they may also have similar question. So you are qualified, but you are still in a state where you need to prove yourself despite having the degree. So I'll ask, you now have more than 10 years of experience across engineering and manufacturing, and your work has touched everything from energy and construction to advanced manufacturing. But careers rarely look at something from the inside as they do on LinkedIn. So, Engineer Onyekachi, what was breaking into the UK engineering profession actually like?
It wasn't easy. I bet you. It's not easy. It's not easy to break into the UK engineering, but it's also a possibility. You understand? One
Yeah.
thing about the UK, or one thing I like in this place is, I don't know about America and Canada, but I tell you for sure, this place is all about what skill set do you have? What can you actually do? I will give you two, three illustrations about this. Do you know that since I've started attending interviews in the UK, there has never been a company, ask any other person, not just me, every other person, there's never been a company that will ask you for your degree certificate.
Why?
Because they're not interested in your degree certificate. What they're interested in is what you can do.
I see.
Yeah, nobody asks you for a degree certificate.
So
Nobody
you
asks you doing
mean
what
even if you have the best theoretical knowledge of what to do, but if you cannot practicalize that, particularly in the field of engineering, it means nothing.
it's rubbish. It's rubbish. Yeah,
I
absolutely
see.
rubbish. Okay, I give you an illustration. I went to an interview, right? Before me is the interviewer is my CV. After reading all through my CV, one after the other, he asked me, "You said you can do this." I said yes. He said you can do that. I said yes. He said, "Explain." I keep explaining. After the explaining, that is how most engineering interviews happens in the UK. They take you straight to the workshop or to where those machines are. They say, "This is this machine. What is this in this machine? How do you do this? If this machine vibrates like this, what do you do?" They will ask you that in practical, like you said, you've written on your CV that you can do.
Wow. This is
They run,
really
yeah, they'll
this
take
is
you there.
really shocking for me to also know. Did your previous experience travel with you, or did you sometimes feel that arriving in a new country meant having to prove yourself all over again? Did you sometimes doubt what you can do?
No, I didn't know what I can do. The only problem I had was coming from the construction background because I was doing mostly construction and design while in Nigeria. So coming to the UK, I now went more into production and maintenance. What in Nigeria I was doing more of construction, a little bit of design and maintenance. But here I came into proper production and other things. So it wasn't easy. And not being exposed to a lot of equipments, practically
Yeah.
and so on was a very big challenge. To be honest, people here are so much ahead of us. A lot of things they do with some of these equipments, we are not able to do it. But it was not easy. I give, for instance, I went to another second interview, and that interview have three sections: one theory, second one face to face, and the third one workshop. So when they get to the workshop, they bring out all the tools, both power tools,
Yeah.
hand tools. They start asking you, what is the name of the tools? beginning to end. You mention all the tools. When you finish mentioning it, they'll bring like three different tools and give you and say, can you use these tools? If you say yes, that's okay. Oh yeah, start using it. So it wasn't really easy,
Yeah, coming from an
So
environment
so
where you are just
uh
interviewed and then they'll take you straight. Probably if you're successful, you start learning on the job. I can imagine perhaps it's
yeah.
something unique in the field of engineering. We'll see with
Mhm,
subsequent guests how this also works in other fields in the UK.
mhm.
I know immigrants often say this: I know what I can do, but I need somebody here to believe that I can do that. Did you experience that? Were there times where you needed someone to believe you, to give you the chance? I mean, talking about profiling, if there were times, maybe because of your racial background, somebody looked at you and feel like, okay, I don't think he can do that. Did you experience something like that so far?
Yeah, well, I feel that most times this thing has to be with antecedents and history. Let's say, for instance, if in a company XYZ, we have somebody, maybe a Nigerian that has worked there before and he performed very well, and maybe he's no more there. Then they employ another person again that is of the same race. You understand?
Yeah,
They might start thinking, oh, are you sure it's not going to perform like the previous person? So what I mean?
yeah.
So that mindset starts coming in. My boss will always tell me Monday, what I'm looking at is how confident you are and the competency. You understand?
Yes.
One thing is for you to know something. I know this. Another thing is for you to have the confidence and put it out.
Yeah.
You understand? So sometimes people try to look at you and know actually whether you can do it. Probably, like you said, because of your race and other things, people expect, oh, he's gonna make a mistake because of your race and other things. But it's up to you to make sure you take it one at a time. You might really be slow. They might say, oh, you're slow, you're not quick enough, you're not proactive or stuff like that. But doesn't really matter, provided you're able to get results, you're able to also improve daily and definitely get to the point that they'll say, okay, he's really improving. So I don't
I
really care
see.
much about the profiling, to be honest.
I see. And I would like to understand, what did you have to learn beyond the technical side of the job? For example, in terms of communication, meetings, workplace humor, networking, knowing when to speak. Were there anything that came up that you experienced as a challenge? Have you ever felt pressure to modify the way you speak, present yourself, or communicate professionally in order to be better understood or accepted?
Okay, in respect to that in workplaces, well, in engineering is a place that they send you guys training courses all of the time. If you work in the UK companies, they don't joke with trainings. I have a lot of trainings I've done, and most times some of these trainings they come with instant exam, they come with instant practical.
Thanks for the reflection. I would like to follow up with something quick. When you entered engineering space in the UK, how conscious are you of being a Black African professional? Does representation or the lack of it affect how you experience those spaces?
Bit positively, maybe a little bit negative, to be honest. Most places I've worked, a lot of people actually likes, me around them, and they really love the energy, the work ethics I bring in, and the fact that I'm also prepared to learn, let them know the ones I can. This is a place that you don't need to claim you know when you don't know. And of course,
Yeah,
when you have sections of meetings with your line managers, they will definitely expect you to tell them where you know your strength and your weaknesses so that they can know where they can strengthen more, because their aim is to make you a better engineer. So, but
interesting,
make sure you have something that you're offering. That's just the fact. The basics.
interesting.
Very, very
You you
important.
you've interesting. Let's talk about career resilience. You've worked across several sectors. Was that diversity intentional, or was part of it immigrant skill of learning to adapt when opportunity appear? What is it like, everyday reality and outside the impressive job titles? What does an ordinary working week actually look like for you?
Yeah, I see myself as a mechanical engineer, not to be in a specific area, but to be a complete mechanical engineer. I want a situation whereby, for instance, if you call me in the railway sector, I should make an impact. I should understand what happens in fixing railway tracks or anything. You understand? I want a situation whereby if you call me in energy, there was a time I visited company in Roncoin. Roncoin is sharing boundary with Chester and Manchester and Liverpool. They are into energy recovery. What do they do? When you gather your waste, plastic waste or polythene, what they do is that they pass it through a furnace and heat it at certain temperature. It passed through a process and they use generating electricity. That's what they distribute to some part of UK. It's called an energy recovering company. So I see myself as an engineer that should be diversifying every sector of mechanical engineering,
I see.
you know. So not just manufacturing, but construction, design, production, and energy, and all of them. Although I'm also looking at other sectors, maybe I see how to integrate into the nuclear. So that is just
Yeah,
what I believe.
that's quite an ambitious plans you have. How would you balance research, relationship, family, community, your ambition, and simply having a life, even making time for this podcast?
Yeah, well, balance things is at the moment, I still believe that there's a certain point I have target to get in my career aspect. And when I get to that point, it will be much more easier for me than complicating it with relationship at the moment. I have a friend, PhD holder currently. So we were talking, he was like, he doesn't have time for relationships so that he will concentrate, and achieve a whole lot of things that he wants to achieve. So I subscribe to that, you
I
know.
see.
So because it's not really easy. Me personally, I know it's not really what I want at this point in time. That's just the fact. So
Yeah,
I believe at the right time, of course, it will come to
interesting to
reality.
know. Yeah, I'd like to, reflect with you if the engineer Oyekachi who first arrived in Britain and perhaps worked in some places, and then you walk back to those places again today, they see the engineer you've become. What would surprise them most about you?
You mean the places I've worked in the Nigeria or the places I've worked while in the
Yeah,
UK?
both the places you've worked for in Nigeria and also here, in those years compared to who you are now, the progress, the learning, the improvement, the growth. What would be the most surprising thing about you right now?
Yeah, you know that when you are in a functioning system or in a country that is working very well, you might not actually know how much you've learned. The reason is because what you're learning is normal here. You understand? It's only going to be appreciated when you go a place where those things are not usual. You understand? So coming
Yes.
from that angle, if I go back to Nigeria, of course, or if the Onyekachi in Nigeria try to look into what the Onyekachi in the UK is doing currently, there is a whole lot of
Yeah.
gap, because a lot of things I've not been able to do that I can actually do them now. This place, you're more of a do it yourself. You're seeing yourself as if you don't do it, nobody's gonna do it for you. So you have to sit up, you have to make that research,
Yeah.
you have to get up, learn how to use that equipment or that tool because you don't know when you'll be asked to use it. If it is something equipment that need to be, maybe you need to get a license for it, you need to go and learn how to drive it and get a license. At least I have more than 5 to 6 mechanical equipments I can drive comfortably,
I see.
you know, in
But
carrying out my
that's
jobs.
quite a huge step you've taken. Engineer Oyekachi, you've been very insightful in this conversation. As we gradually begin to wind down now, climate,
Yeah.
circular economy, contribution, and belonging, becomes our next focus now. This is where your story connects strongly with Diaspora Glitch. Your research touches sustainable materials, advanced manufacturing, and circular economy technologies. Those phrases can sound very technical. So let's bring them down to everyday life. When you talk about, for example, circular economy, what does that actually mean for somebody listening to us who isn't an engineer? Why should an ordinary household care?
Yes, what I mean by circular economy, we're talking about to the lowest. So economy is what drive every country. So, as a mechanical engineer, my research I've done so far are talking about production and those things you produce, who consumes them. Is the me and you. In most of my research, I'm saying how productions can be improved so
Yeah.
that it affect the daily lives of people, so that products prices can come out can be very affordable. I'm talking about engineering reliability.
Yeah.
You understand? Now, I work in a place that our production is more of just in time process. It's an automated system that when it gets to point A to point B, if point B is not available, you're losing time. And when you're
Yes.
losing time, it's affecting your output. And when it's affecting your output, it's affecting your clients, the buyers. And when it's affecting the buyers, it's affecting the person coming to get from
Yeah.
the wholesaler. And that is how it runs down. So that is what I'm trying to talk about in respect to second.
Interesting. Thank you for reflecting this. Engineers are increasingly being asked to solve two problems simultaneously. How do we improve lives while reducing environmental impact? How is that changing mechanical engineering and manufacturing industry?
Okay. Well, engineering is something that is properly regulated. We have a lot of policies in engineering, a lot
I
of
see.
regulations in engineering, we have a lot of trainings in engineering. You understand? And some of these regulations, training are meant to be kept in the standards. And these things are being reviewed. You understand?
Yeah.
For instance, if you are to drive an equipment, if you are to go for a job, first thing is to prepare risk assessment and method statement for the job. You need to have a work permit for the job. That is when you start knowing what is involved in this job, what are the risks, how do you carry out this job effectively so that it doesn't affect you and it doesn't affect the environment. So that
Thanks for this reflection. And having lived and worked between Nigeria and Britain, do you think moving countries changes how you understand environmental problems? For example, energy, waste, consumption, infrastructure, or climate resilience can look very different depending on where you are standing. How have these changed your reality?
Yeah. I think we need to do a whole lot of things in respect to that. When you compare Nigeria and Britain, it has changed me, to be honest. In the Britain, like I mentioned earlier, that I have been to Vividor. Vividor in Runcorn is an energy recovering plant. Okay, imagine a situation where all your plastic, all your waste, they are being used to generate energy. Of course, companies will always be eager to come and take those waste because they are supplying it to a company that they know that is going to use it to produce energy or produce electricity. You see what I mean? But we don't have such plants where we are coming from. That is, for instance. There was a time we were also in discussion with one of my lecturer that was teaching me about energy systems. So we are analyzing the percentage of gas flaring. Even though
Yeah,
gas flaring is still in the UK or Europe, but it cannot compare the percentage with what it is in Nigeria. Do you understand what I mean?
I see.
I remember those days in Nigeria, you can just wake up in the morning, touch yourself, you see some suit, touching you, suit from everywhere, maybe suit
Yeah,
from nearby refineries. Something like that is not here. Do you understand what I mean? So
yeah,
these are
I
just the
see.
quite differences.
Yeah, that's been quite a huge transformation in this regard. And there's often a conversation about brain drain when African professionals move abroad. Leads to brain drain. But also, there's another side to this. Those professionals also generate knowledge, circulate them, build networks, investment, and expertise moving across borders. So, how do you think about your relationship with Nigeria in relation to brain drain? Do you think you have been brain drained?
No, I've not been brain drained at all because while I was in Nigeria, there were some limitations. The system we have over there, I'm sorry to say, is a system that it doesn't really reward or give a fair playground for everybody. Some people tend to be more opportune than others, probably by connections or any other thing. And maybe because the resources are limited, the commonwealth is not more common over there. So I think that it's not a brain drain when you decide to live to a place where your efforts or hard work are really appreciated or rewarded. So to me, it's
I
not a
see.
brain drain.
And those narratives that also make it, that present countries such as the UK as, taking the best from places like Nigeria to meet up their own labor demand. Do you think these countries are actually brain draining Nigeria, or is it something deeper beyond using the phrase brain drain?
No, they are not really draining us because why I say they are not really draining us is because the only way to correct the system is if government can actually understand that they are losing their best people and put this in order that should make those best people to remain. Because at the end of the
Okay,
day, government are not the one that are gonna pay bills for you. Government are not the one that are gonna sort out your family, pay you. So,
I
so
see.
I don't know. You cannot be more patriotic than those in power.
I see. That's a very
That is
good way to put it.
that is just the reality.
I see.
So even when you're traveling outside, right, or when you're going abroad, of course, in your SOP, you always write, "Oh, after gathering this knowledge, I wish to come back to my country and make meaningful impact to growing of my country." Yeah, that's what most people
Yeah,
write. So that, so even the system, they also know that that one day you go back to your place. You understand? At that point, are you not gonna help your country? Of course, what you get here, you also helping your country. So living temporarily to get yourself balanced doesn't actually mean that you're being brain drained, but
I
rather you're
see.
also supporting your country in one way or the other. It might not be immediately, maybe in the nearest.
Yeah. Thank you for this reflection. Do you see your future contribution as British, Nigeria, or increasingly something that doesn't fit neatly into either category?
Of course, I've always seen myself as somebody that will contribute not just to British, even to the whole world. Because every day I make a lot of research to see how to develop things that could solve problems to humanity. And of course, when those things become a reality, I believe the Britain is an environment that encourages young talents. Of course, they will definitely push me, and it will
Yeah.
definitely be a plus, not just to them, but to the whole world and also Nigeria. So, for fact, yes, is the answer.
You very much, Engineer Monday, for these responses. Final reflection, and perhaps this is the question I'd like to leave listeners with. Are you
Uh-huh.
still trying to find home, or have you learned that home can exist in more than one place at the same time? Engineer Onyekachi, before I let you go, I have one final question. Imagine a young African engineer listening to us from either Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, or Johannesburg.
Mhm.
Or perhaps they have just arrived somewhere in the UK with a suitcase, a university admission, and a lot of uncertainty. What do you wish somebody had told you at the beginning of your own journey?
Very good. What I will tell them or what I will advise them is if somebody had told you that the journey is going to be easy, it can never be easy. It's not easy. The reason why it's not easy is because is a process. Once something is a process, it means that B might not happen if A has not happened, and C might not happen if B has not happened. So do not join the bandwagon of people that come to another country and start causing trouble. Keep your heads up. Patience is the key. Hard work is also the key. Consistency, and before you know it, over a period of time, you see yourself breaking through. So that's just my encouragement. Why people are doing things, join them, especially the good ones. If people are getting driving license, get it. If people are getting skill sets as a result of the new environment, get it. If people are joining trainings in one thing or the other, join them. If people are acquiring qualifications, join them. You mustn't really wait for them anyway. But I'm just saying, if you're the type that need a push, at least that alone is enough justification for you to, make progress for yourself. So that's just my little advice to anybody, any part of the world. Work hard, be consistent, acquire a lot of skill sets, dream big, chase those big dreams, make applications upon application. It doesn't matter. You can change job every three months. Go for bigger things. Upgrade yourself and you see yourself, being the person you never envisaged to be in a good and a positive.
Well, thank you very much, Engineer Onyekachi, for this reflection.
Yeah,
Your
very welcome.
phrasing of process, implying that if A has not happened, B cannot happen. And we can't talk about D if
Exactly.
you have not gone through C.
Mhm.
Really reflect this answer very well. What I take from this conversation overall is that migration isn't simply about changing countries. It's about learning new systems, rebuilding professional confidence, negotiating identity,
Exactly.
adapting without completely losing yourself, and eventually discovering what contribution and belonging mean in a life that stretches across borders. And perhaps engineering offers us a useful metaphor for diaspora itself. You don't necessarily discard what already exists. You adapt it, connect it, strengthen it,
Exactly.
and build something new. Engineer Onyekachi, thank you for sharing your journey with us. And to everyone listening, this has been Diaspora Glitch Podcast, where home is a patchwork of places. Until next time, stay blessed. Thank you very much for joining us today, Engineer
Thank you
Monday.
very much. I really appreciate this wonderful time you really made out to bring this program. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And have a nice day.